Alright, so today I will go over and explain the madness that is the Jeju Island arc in solo leveling. Now this arc is just crazy as Jinwoo gets to meet the strongest hunter in all of Japan. But that's far from everything, as in this arc, Jinwoo is faced with his toughest opponent ever, which I'm telling you right now is completely insane. So I would definitely recommend you sticking to the end, because this is an arc you don't want to miss. Anyway, with that said, this is spoilers for anime only watchers, so be careful of that. But with that out of the way, please leave a like and a comment on this video, and grab your favorite snacks, and with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Alright, so we get right into it as we enter the hospital and see the doctor being in total awe as someone has just told him that a patient has woken up from the internal slumber and says that this is unexpected. His assistant says that the patient's guardian is requesting for immediate discharge from the hospital and asks what they should do. The doctor tells him not a chance, explaining that not only is she too unstable, but she's also been laying asleep for 4 years and that she wouldn't even be able to walk. But the assistant then explains that the patient is totally fine and that everything is perfectly normal, saying that it's as if the patient wasn't asleep for 4 years and that there's no problem with her current health and that she can even walk on her own. The doctor asks him if he's sure. He says that he is, and that it might be thanks to the life support machine. The doctor says that even so, getting discharged this early is a separate matter at hand, and that they must let the world know about this case. Before he can finish his sentence, the assistant cuts him off and explains that the guardian isn't an ordinary man, as he explains that the guardian is Hunter Sung Jinwoo, who has recently become South Korea's 10th S-rank hunter. This makes the doctor a bit afraid to take action, as he says that they can't hold on to healthy patients in the hospital against their will, and that they should let her discharge. After that, we get into the room and see their mother looking at Gina, and is happy seeing how much she's grown. Gina can't hold her emotions, and starts to cry as she goes to hug their mom. Jinwoo is looking at them a little bit away, as he thinks that his efforts wasn't in vain, and that it feels like all his troubles until now were leading up to reward him with this moment, which is so sweet. However, he does admit that working as a hunter has been strange, and wonders if he's distanced himself too much, and says that uneasiness is taking over. So he instead goes outside and sits down on a park bench. He takes up his phone and thinks that he left his phone unattended for too long while he was at the demon castle, and that there's a lot of missed calls, but he thinks that if it's truly something important, they would call him back. After that, he spots some news talking about Kaisel, and a lot of citizens wonder if it's a monster. Suddenly, his phone starts to vibrate as he's getting a call, and it's none other than the big man himself, Go Gun-hee. Jinwoo is shocked, but asks if there's a problem. Go Gun-hee says that he's sure that Jinwoo has seen the news, but Jinwoo asks what news he's referring to, wondering if Go Gun-hee has discovered Kaisel. But it wasn't that, as Go Gun-hee wants to explain it in person, and asks if it's okay for him to come and see Jinwoo, but Jinwoo says that he will come to him instead. He gets to the Hunter Association, where Go Gun-hee explains that the raid will begin in 4 days, saying that they will go to Jeju Island and eliminate those ants once and for all. However, for them to succeed, they need Jinwoo's help. Jinwoo thinks to himself that normally he would agree without hesitation, but since it's crawling with highly ranked monsters, he isn't sure as he thinks back to his mother and Gina. Suddenly, he's able to feel an insane amount of magical energy. Go Gun-hee asks what's wrong, but Jinwoo says that it's nothing, but that it seems like there's a fight somewhere nearby. Go Gun-hee laughs and says that he has good sense, and says that S-rank hunters are currently warming up in the gym. Jinwoo is surprised by this, but Go Gun-hee explains that since there are only 4 days left until the Jeju Island raid, Goto Ryuji and his Japanese S-rank hunters are currently there as well, and Go Gun-hee asks if Jinwoo wants to maybe check it out. After that, we see Baek-yoon-ho looking furious as he rushes over to another S-rank hunter who catches him. But he doesn't only catch the insane-looking Baek-yoon-ho, as he's also able to flip him upside down and onto the ground. He screams at Master Baek-yoon-ho as he calls him and says that someone like him should be able to use more strength. But Baek-yoon-ho just says that he isn't a master and calls the other guy Master Ma. And then we see the two of them going at it once again. After that, we see Go Gun-hee and Jinwoo, who looks down at them. Go Gun-hee says that it's uncommon for all the S-rank hunters to gather in one place, and that the magical energy Jinwoo sensed earlier is probably from them. Jinwoo says that Baek-yoon-ho is getting slightly pushed back. After that, we see someone from the side saying that if Baek-yoon-ho were to give it his all against Ma Dong-wook, he wouldn't stand a chance. It's none other than Choi Jong-in, who tells Jinwoo that it's been a while. After that, we learn that the man wearing the dobok is the Fame Guild's Ma Dong-wook. Anyway, back to Jinwoo, who asks why Baek-yoon-ho is hiding his strength when Ma Dong-wook is not an opponent he can slack off with. Choi Jong-in explains that it's hard for them to use all their strength when there are lots of eyes around. saying that since President Beak turns into a real monster when he fights, Jinwoo just thinks that the rumors about his transformation ability is then true after all. After that, we see a lot of S-rank hunters who are all from the Japanese Draw Sword Guild. Anyway, they are Ipei Izawa, Mari Ishida, Ken Tanaka, Minoru Hoshino, Atsushi Kumamoto, Kane Tawata, Tatsumi Fujishima, Kei, and lastly Akari Shimizu, and we also can't forget to mention the leader Goto Ryuji. After that, Akari spots Jinwoo up there watching and asks Hanekawa who that man is. She tells her that it's Hunter Jinwoo, who recently became a S-rank hunter. Goto wonders if he is an assassin class hunter, as Jinwoo has an enormous presence that can't be concealed despite his attempts, and because of that, he says that he must be quite a splendid assassin class hunter, but Hanekawa corrects him as she tells him that he is a mage class hunter. Goto says that there's no way that it can be true, but Hanekawa says that it's officially confirmed information. After that, we get to Lim Tae-gyu, who looks at Jinwoo and calls him the man who ruined their Minsung's debut. Cha Hae-in, standing beside him, is surprised to see Jinwoo, but thinks that it may be thanks to him why the air there has changed into a more pleasant scent. After that, we get to the Japanese S ranks, where we see Ishida trying to talk to Kei about Jinwoo, but Kei tells her not to talk to him, as he might throw up with all these S-rank hunters gathered here. He then looks over to Cha Hae-in and thinks that it seems to be someone else like him, with a sensitive nose like him in South Korea. But thinking that if a handkerchief is enough to block out the smell, then her sense must be a few levels below his. He then wonders if it would look like he was hitting on her if he went over to talk to her, and wishes that he should have learned Korean. Anyway, as Baek Yuno and Ma Dongwook is going at it, Hanekawa asks if these really are the best hunters in South Korea, and says that there isn't much to see. Goto asks her if that's true, and she says that since she has witnessed Goto clear raids numerous times, other S-rank hunters just might not cut it for her anymore. But Goto says that it's not entirely true, as he looks over at Cha Hae-in and says that there's one useful hunter, and also says that she and Go Gun-hee is stronger than the rest. Anyway, after that, someone goes up to Hanekawa and asks her if she really called South Korea's hunters lousy. He asks her if she thought that he wouldn't be able to hear her just because they are speaking Japanese. Before revealing that he learned Japanese as his second language in school, Hanekawa coldly asks him who he is, and his assistant says that he is the guild master of the Knights Guild and that he is Park Jong-soo, a A-rank hunter. Hanekawa says that this is the first time she is hearing about this name. His assistant gets angry and says that Park Jong-soo is an A-rank and not an S-rank, so that might be why. But he says that he is still the guild master of one of the top 5 guilds in South Korea, and not to mention how they have recruited more A-rank hunters than any other guild. Park Jong-soo just tells Yoon-tae to stop bragging. After that, Hanekawa asks him if he will be joining the raid and says that she heard that only S-rank hunters would participating. Yoon-tae tells her that Park Jong-soo is part of the defense squad and saying that it's an important role that entails blockading Jeju Island. Hanekawa then says that it's a relief as they can't rely on A-ranks for an important task like this one. Goto, on the side, just tells her that if she is causing trouble, she should stop it. However, just then, Park Jong-soo asks her what a girl working as a translator would know. She asks him if he would like to check her skills and says that she is Hanekawa Japan's A-rank hunter. She takes off her coat and asks him if he can't even beat a hunter that's only here for the translating job. Park Jong-soo looks back and tells her that she should really stop looking down at them, but she just funnily enough asks him if he is a non-combatant hunter. Jinwoo, watching this, thinks that it's really going to go down, and Choi Jong-in says that it will be interesting. Park Jong-soo says that they should decide on the rules, and that it will be better than just beating each other up. He says that the rules will be simple, and that the first one to grab the wrist of the other will be the winner. Hanekawa thinks to herself that if you swing your fist for an attack and get caught, it will all be over, and that you can't attack carelessly. She then tells him that it's a rule that involves quite a bit of mind games, and also asks him if he's really going to fight in that posture he's having. Park Jong-soo's aura is beginning to emanate as he tells her not to worry, as there won't be a need for him to take out his hand other than to grab her wrist. Hanekawa thinks that he must be quite confident in his speed and tells him to begin. Right off the bat, Hanekawa rushes towards him and takes out her hand to try and attack, but Park Jong-soo is effortlessly avoiding her attacks, just as she is thinking that she will expose his bluff. Suddenly, her hand gets blown away, and we see that Park Jong-soo kicked it away, telling her that it wasn't an attack but just a slight push. Hanekawa just says that she can't seem to understand his dialect, and says that more importantly, it's not very cool to make that pose, while one's crotch area is exposed as we see his pants being ripped. Because of that, Hanekawa thinks that this is her chance to go at him and goes for another attack. But Park Jong-soo, without any sweat, just grabs her wrist and tells her that she is too slow. Hanekawa is in pure shock by what just happened, but Park Jong-soo asks her if she's the type to hide behind her tanks, and says that it doesn't seem like she has any combat experience against humans, explaining that there's all sorts of troubles in South Korea, and even if you don't want to, there are times when they as humans have to fight humans, and in worst case scenarios they have to be killed, telling her that she is going to suffer if she doesn't consider that. As unlike monsters, humans don't move in simple patterns, saying that if he had his knife in his hand, he could have slit her throat instead of simply grabbing her wrist. However, Hanekawa doesn't care as she just gets mad. After that, Goto comes forward and says that it was quite a spectacle, and he asks Hanekawa if she can deliver a message to everyone for him. After that, she translates what Goto is saying, which is that to build trust with each other, there's a proposal that he wants to make to the Koreans. He asks them for a spar, using the same rule just now, but this time between the S-rank hunters. Jinwoo thinks that it must mean that he wants to test their skills, but after that Gun-hee speaks up and says that they should exclude mage class and non-combatant hunters since they would be harder to judge. Baek-yoon-ho also asks them to add a few more rules as well, and says that whoever can touch the other's back or knock them over will be considered the winner as well, and instead of 1 versus 1 they should make it into a group competition. Hanekawa translates it to Goto, and he says that they should do it that way. After that, we see that Hunter Baek-yoon-ho, Ma Dong-wook, Cha Hae-in, as well as Lim Tae-kyu will participate in Korea's team. Meanwhile, Kenzo Tanaka, Minoru Koshino, Atsushi Kumamoto, and Kanai Takawa will fight for Japan. Jinwoo looks at this and thinks that Goto is planning to stay back, and wonders if his true intentions is to observe them from the sidelines. However, he thinks that in any case, you don't get to see an S-rank hunter's battle every day, and says that it's a good thing that he came. After that, we get into the head of Kenzo, who thinks that Ma Dong-wook as well as Baek-yoon-ho is extremely strong, as he knows that from their earlier battle, but he still thinks that Baek-yoon-ho is keeping something up his sleeve. We then get to Kanai, who says that if it's a 4-on-4 battle, she should probably go for Cha Hae-in. Meanwhile, Lim Tae-kyu hopes that they will go easy on him. Anyway, after that, Ma Dong-wook gets super hyped as he uses his power, Gigantification, and tells them to get it started. We then learn that Kenzo also has that technique and gets ready as well, and after that, the two of them go at it to find out which one of them is the strongest. We then see Minoru going for Lim Tae-kyu. He thinks that Minoru is fast, and that he must be pretty confident in his speed, and says that he will be at a disadvantage if he tries to get close. He then gets out some sort of arrows, and then throws them toward Minoru. Minoru is in shock, but quickly dodges them. Gun-hee, looking at them, says that the training facility has been built and fortified using the greatest magic gems out there, and he says that your average hunters wouldn't have been able to make a dent to this room, but these guys were able to make quite a mess in a few seconds, thinking that letting these young ones participate in the battle is quite regretful, explaining that Baek-yoon-ho is the strongest hunter amongst all the S-rank hunters, and that they need to be cautious, as he won't just grab their arms, but he will most likely break them. We then see Atsushi, who calls Baek-yoon-ho a cheap gimmick, and says that he won't follow the rules and only target the arms and the back, as he thinks that it's all about survival of the fittest, as he goes in for the kill. But Baek-yoon-ho is luckily able to get away. He thinks that he felt bloodlust coming from him, but wonders why Atsushi backed off, and asks if he got scared. We then get over to Atsushi, who says that he got nervous again, and says that he isn't cut out to be a hunter. Baek-yoon-ho thinks that Goto wants to test their skill levels by using his guys, and says that he hopes that Goto is prepared for what's to come. He starts getting more fired up, and says that if they are going to treat him like a test subject, then he'll get a bit more serious. Atsushi says that Baek-yoon-ho's eyes changed, and says that it's terrifying. Baek-yoon-ho rushes towards him, and throws a punch while calling him a wimp. Park Jong-soo, watching from the side, says that they are all monsters, and that his fight from earlier was pretty much kid's play compared to these guys, but his assistant disagrees as he calls his fight pretty cool. Suddenly, Baek-yoon-ho hears something behind him, and he looks over and sees Kenzo, who's defeated Ma Dong-wook. Ma Dong-wook on the ground, says that he can't believe this and that this is a first for him. But it isn't only him, as we see Minoru slamming Lim Tae-kyu into the wall and claiming his victory. Baek-yoon-ho takes a deep breath and sees that the three of them are looking at him and asks them who's next, and asks them if they really think that facing him is easier than Cha Hae-in, telling them that they are looking down at him. After that, we get to Kanai, who we see is struggling against Cha Hae-in. Kanai says that she thought that Cha Hae-in would just be fast, but that's not the case at all, as she can't find any patterns at all. We then see her preparing some attack, and the text says that Cha Hae-in's nickname was the Dancer. She was given that nickname due to her nimble moves that were similar to dance moves, as she quickly dispatched her opponents, But due to her embarrassment, her guild leader had prohibited the use of that nickname. Because of this, not many know about it. Cha Hae-in is completely annihilating Kanai, but then Kanai tries to give back. But Cha Hae-in sends a powerful attack down, which stops Kanai before Cha Hae-in gets to her and touches her back, which means that she is defeated. She looks over to Baek-yoon-ho and says that she needs to go and help him quickly. But just then Atsushi comes behind her. He thinks that he will take care of her, but it doesn't go as he thought it would, as Cha Hae-in hits him with multiple attacks head-on. The spectators are in shock, as they call it a Gatling gun, and says that Cha Hae-in must have thrown about 14 punches. Cha Hae-in herself thinks that she might have gone a bit overboard, as we see that Atsushi have gotten angry. His teammates on the side says that when he gets angry his personality completely changes, saying that he loses all reason. Even Goto from the side tells Hanakawa that if anyone on the Korea team is about to get seriously injured, then she has to stop him immediately, as he's just trying to test them. But she tells him that if he's thinking of stopping him, they probably have to do it now, also saying that they can't afford to even compensate them for the damage that's about to come. We then see Atsushi getting furious and goes in to kick Cha Hae-in right to the face. But just as his kick is about to reach Cha Hae-in's face, the wind starts blowing like crazy around them, and we see that the goat Jinwoo came and stopped Atsushi. He tells him that it's just a competition. However, his bloodlust is a little too much, and saying that he hopes that he doesn't mind Jinwoo coming in his way. Atsushi just gets more furious as he goes in to attack Jinwoo, but Jinwoo easily takes him down. Goto is shocked by Jinwoo's moves, and asks Hanakawa if she's sure that he's a mage-type hunter. She explains that it's what the official sources say, but she tells him that it might be best if Goto goes to find out for himself. Jinwoo, while holding down Atsushi, tells Cha Hae-in that it's best if they consider that the Korean team lost this fight, and says that Baek-yoon-ho also got caught. Baek-yoon-ho thinks that the difference in their skill level was quite big, and even if he transformed, it wouldn't have made a difference. Anyway, Hanakawa goes forward to Jinwoo and tells her that Goto has a message for him. We see Goto emanating an aura around himself, as Hanakawa tells Jinwoo that Goto wants to have a one-on-one fight with him, which only makes Jinwoo excited as his eyes start glowing. Jinwoo thinks that the aura that Goto is giving off, he can tell what he's getting at even without a translator, and Jinwoo knows that Goto wants to see how strong Jinwoo is for himself. He thinks that he isn't sure what Goto's intentions are. However, it's not a bad chance for him to test out how much stronger he's gotten from the demon castle, and he starts to lightly smile. Goto sees this and gets a bit angry at it. After that, Hanakawa tells Goto that Jinwoo has agreed to his challenge under one condition, which is that he will only fight Goto in his full strength. This makes Goto basically see red as he wonders if Jinwoo is serious right now. Lim Tae-gyu looks a bit caught off guard and asks what's going on. Goto thinks that it's interesting and says that as they have Shimizu there, nobody will get seriously wounded. After that, Goto says that he agrees to the terms and tells Shimizu to take care of the injured and tells her to take special care of Jinwoo, implying that he will destroy Jinwoo. Ma Dong-wook is sitting on the ground and says, "So that's the infamous 10th hunter, saying that he can tell that Jinwoo is strong, but that he can't believe that he's having a fight with Goto." Cha Hae-in wonders if everything will be okay, thinking that he was able to fight the A-rank dungeon's boss and 100 high orcs by himself. After that, Baek-yoon-ho asks her if she's fine with all these hunters being around. Cha Hae-in says that it's not like she can cover her nose all the time when they get to Jeju Island, also asking Baek-yoon-ho if he's an acquaintance of Jinwoo, which he says that he is. Cha Hae-in then asks if he shouldn't be trying to stop this match. Baek-yoon-ho says that it would be the normal response since he's fighting Goto, but telling Cha Hae-in that his reasoning is the same as hers, which is that they are getting strangely excited for this match. He then thinks to himself and says that if Jinwoo is someone who has the power to continuously get stronger, then it's possible that he's even stronger than the last time he met him. After that, we get to the goat Jinwoo, who looks up and is about to tell Goto to start, but even before he can finish his sentence, Goto's hand is about to reach his face. But luckily Jinwoo was able to evade just in time. Jinwoo thinks that he attacked before he even finished talking, and Goto just wonders if he missed. He looks furious as he thinks that Jinwoo being a mage type is bullshit, and that all those nimble and soundless moves, even if you can fool everyone else, Jinwoo can't fool him, thinking that he will reveal Jinwoo's secrets from him, and that this won't end until he reveal everything that Jinwoo is hiding. On the other hand, Jinwoo thinks that he's definitely different from the other S-rank hunters, and that he's extremely strong. But as Goto goes in for the next attack, Jinwoo thinks that Goto's attacks are still attacks that he can avoid, and gets a light smirk which once again gets Goto super angry. Ippei then asks if they shouldn't be stopping this match, and Kenzo says that it looks like Goto is planning to take this match seriously. Lim Taegyu says that Goto's attacks are scary and that they are almost too fast for him to track with his eyes. Ma Dong-wook says that Jinwoo is holding on pretty well and saying that there aren't many who can dodge that many blows thrown by the best hunter in Japan. However, Cha Hae-in on the side says that Jinwoo isn't holding on, but that even amongst the unending attacks released by Goto, he's continuously taunting him to throw even more. After that, we see Choi Jong-gin, who's just come back from his smoke break, saying that something interesting is going on, which was pretty funny. Goto throws another punch, but once again Jinwoo evades it, and Goto starts to wonder if it's all thanks to luck. This makes Goto realize that if he doesn't use his full strength, he might just lose to Jinwoo, and then thinks that he's changed his mind, and that he will just kill him. Goto throws yet another attack, which gets evaded by Jinwoo, who gets a small mark on his left cheek from the force, but that's not all, as his system appears and says warning, and that it can sense someone with immense bloodlust close to Jinwoo. When Goto throwed his next attack, Jinwoo didn't evade this time, but instead grabbed Goto's hand. Jinwoo thinks that if he mess around for too long, then he'll get the emergency quest, like the time he fought Hwang Dong-suk and Kang Tae-sik, and then tells Goto that if he had been any slower, then he would have lost his eye right there. Goto is amazed by the pure strength from Jinwoo, and says that he could have grabbed his wrist, but he chose his hand instead, and asks Jinwoo if he thinks that he can play with Goto. Jinwoo looks confident as he tells Goto that he's not sure what he's saying right now, but that the match is over if he grabs his wrist, and says that he wouldn't want the match to be over yet. This makes both of them fire up and start going in for a massive attack, but just as they are about to clash, we see Baek Yoonho and Cha Hae-in coming in and stopping Jinwoo while Minoru stops Goto and Kei puts up ice between the two of them. Baek Yoonho tells Jinwoo to stop this match now and that Goto is the person who has to lead the Japanese hunters in a few days. Cha Hae-in adds in and says that they won't be able to take responsibility if he gets injured here. Baek Yoonho tells Hanekawa to end practice for today, and she agrees. After that, Baek Yoonho asks Jinwoo if he shouldn't have interfered, but Jinwoo says that it's fine. Jinwoo looks down and admits that he went a bit overboard, but that he now knows the strength of all the hunters here. Also, he was able to find out something. Go Gun-hee, Choi Jong-gin, Cha Hae-in, and Baek Yoonho, as well as Goto Ryuji. Even though they are S-rank hunters, they weren't able to detect his soldiers that were hidden inside their shadows, saying that he is mostly surprised that Goto wasn't able to sense anything. After that, Jinwoo says Go Gun-hee's name and is about to tell him whether he will participate in the raid on Jeju Island or not. However, we don't get to know what his answer is just yet, as we only see Go Gun-hee, who looks surprised, but we also get to Goto, who looks absolutely terrified after the fight ends. We then get to the White Tiger Guild, where we see Baek Yoonho sitting comfortably in his chair. He wonders if something like that is possible, and that he can't believe that there are someone who can continuously get stronger, wondering how much he would be worth. But then saying that the attempts at recruiting Jinwoo would be fruitless, but even if that were the case, then there's still many ways to build a relationship with talented hunters. He then holds up his phone as he says that it's time for Plan B and is about to check the list for the participations for the upcoming ant raid in 4 days. But his eyes quickly widen and he gets up and screams, asking why Jinwoo isn't listed. After that, we switch scenes and go over to Goto, who's talking to Sugimoto and telling him about Jinwoo, calling Jinwoo very talented. Sugimoto laughs, but says that he's sure that he can't be better than Goto himself. But Goto tells Sugimoto that he isn't too sure about that. Sugimoto then asks for the hunter's name, and Goto says that he's called Jinwoo, and that he recently became an reawakened S-rank hunter. Sugimoto searches him up, but notices that he isn't on the list with the hunters, anticipating the Jeju Island raid. Goto is mind-blown by this, and says that this can't be right, saying that unless he's being crazy, there's no way that Chairman Go Gun-hee would form the raid team without a talented hunter like him. Sugimoto tells him that they can't really do anything, and that they have 16 S-rank hunters in total participating, and that there won't be a problem, which Goto agrees with, saying that he will call Sugimoto once again when the raid starts. After that, we switch scenes towards Halasan Bengnokdam, where we see some of the ants saying that they must leave the island, saying that there's nothing to eat and that the children are eating each other. They have come to a point where there are no more food to support their empire and is determined to not let it stay like this. The queen says that they need stronger soldiers. They need the ultimate soldier who will lead the empire. For the glory of the empire, they need to be able to strike fear into the enemies who try to stop them. We then see the large ant in the egg, who is basically repeating what the queen already said. He says that he will strike fear into the enemies who try to stop them, and he starts breaking out of the egg and says that he needs to become the strongest. And then, as he's broken out of it, his aura goes completely wild as he roars out of determination. After that, we get to Jinwoo, where the house looks like a mess. He pinches Jinna's cheeks and thinks that she must have made a mess during the time he was at the demon castle. However, their mother smiles and says that it's been about 4 years since she had to do housework and asks them to help out, and Jinwoo just smiles. As they are cleaning, their mother says that it feels like the house has gotten older and that there's a lot of grime in places where it wasn't before. Jinwoo says that it's the house that they have been living in since they were kids after all. Their mother then picks up a photo and asks Jinwoo if he's heard any news about their father during the time she was asleep. Jinwoo looks down and says that he hasn't. We then get into Jinwoo's thoughts as he thinks that if he were to tell his mom that he is a hunter just like their dad, he wonders what she would say and that there's a reason why she doesn't want to move out of this old apartment, even though Jinwoo himself makes more money than anyone can ever imagine. There's still a reason as to why he continues to live here and pay rent for this place. Looking at his mom and thinking that their mom is still waiting for their dad, who went missing, saying that she hopes that maybe he will find his way back to this apartment. He knows that his mother needs him more than ever, which is why he can't go to the Jeju Island raid. After that, we get to a news reporter who says that the rate at which the ant army is evolving is phenomenal. Every time new soldiers are born, they will dominate the rest of the army, and that is how they know that they have evolved, saying that the images they are seeing right now are when the ants were at stage 1 or stage 2 of their evolutionary phase. First, they behaved like ordinary ants who merely crawled around on the floor. The only difference was that these ants were massive. However, this new image was taken when the ants were at stage 3 of their evolutionary phase, saying that the ant army are now able to walk upright, much like humans, and are more nimble as their giant heads have become much smaller, and they are also able to use 4 of their legs as hands. Within just 2 years they have changed drastically. Lastly, we come to this picture where he says that this depicts the ant that caused quite a bit of damage in Japan, saying that they have become alarmingly similar to humans and have gained wings on their back, continuing and saying that those things are currently able to fly around in the sky, saying that this might be the last chance for the Korean and Japanese team to defeat them. One of them says that he can understand why most hunters would want to run away after seeing an ant like that. The girl to his right says that there are a retired hunter who is courageous enough to participate in this raid. We then see some comments slandering Jinwoo's name for not going along with the raid. He thinks that he doesn't really care for hate comments, but he wonders how they will affect Jinna. After that, Jinho suddenly calls his phone. Jinwoo asks him if he's still at the motel, but he says that he recently moved to a new place and that thankfully his mom was able to get in touch with him. He then tells Jinwoo that he's found an office that he might like and asks Jinwoo to come and take a look at it. Jinwoo is quite caught off guard, but Jinho explains that if he's going to build a guild, then the first thing he needs is an office. He then asks Jinwoo what he thinks and says that not only is this one of the best places, but it's not located too far from his house. Jinwoo asks Jinho if he doesn't think that this office is a bit too big for them. Jinho explains that they actually need 3 members to start a guild, which means that they are still missing one. Jinwoo wonders to himself if there's a hunter he knows that he can just use as a fill-in to start his guild. After that, Jinho tells Jinwoo that there was someone who was looking for him. He explains that it was a foreigner who was speaking English, and they told Jinho that they would be residing in Korea until July 17th and hope that Jinwoo will contact them. Jinwoo wonders who that could be, but just as he is about to grab the note, he feels something. He tells Jinho to wait a second and says that he needs to go home, so he uses his shadow exchange ability to switch places with one of his shadow soldiers, which scares Jinho a bit. We then move into an alleyway where we see someone threatening someone with a knife. He tells the girl that if she makes a sound, then he would kill her, telling her that he has already killed lots of people. The girl can only cry, asking him not to kill her. He then starts to smile creepily and says that this is why he loves this neighborhood. But suddenly, he can hear someone behind him saying that he also loves this neighborhood. It's Jinwoo, who says that he is curious to why the man do things like this. The man looks back and says that if he had to give one reason, then it would be that it's so much fun. He says that as he takes his knife and goes towards Jinwoo, he grabs Jinwoo's shoulder and is about to hit him with the knife. However, surprisingly, the knife wasn't able to pierce through Jinwoo, and he instead takes the knife and cuts the person's leg and thigh. Jinwoo looks super cool as he tells the girl that before it gets dark, it's best that she return to his home. She runs away, and Jinwoo then tells the man that before midnight he needs to turn himself in, and he then coldly walks away, while thinking that the next day is when the raid on Jeju Island will begin. And then we right away get to the next day, where we see helicopters that are carrying the hunters making their way to Jeju Island. We then see Goto, who's holding his phone while shaking. He thinks back to when he met Jinwoo and wonders if the feeling he felt at that time was death. He scratches his face and says that he can't believe that he's become weaker. We then get to both the coast of China as well as the coast of Taiwan, where we see some boats preparing. Not to mention how many boats have gathered around Jeju Island. We then see Park Jong-soo telling Young Yoon-tae to steel his nerves and that if he doesn't, then the ants can most likely sense his fear and they will attack him first. Young Yoon-tae asks him if they even have to worry about that, but Park Jong-soo tells him that you never know. And besides that, it's their style to always be prepared for any given situation, and they'll make sure to mercilessly kill any ants that fly towards them. This only gets Young Yoon-tae hyped as he says that he will follow Park Jong-soo wherever he goes. After that, we see Ma Dong-wook talking to his guild and telling them that he will leave the rear defense to them. One of the guild members asks him what else she is supposed to do, saying that people who are in charge of defense are people who are on standby and that there's probably nothing for her to do today. Ma Dong-wook then says that since everyone is here and since she is the vice guild master, she could have some combat training. She asks him how she's supposed to do that, as she is only the vice guild master by name. Ma Dong-wook then takes his hand on her head and says that the guild was only able to get this big thanks to her and that she was the one who took care of the inner and outer workings of the guild. Since Ma Dong-wook is pretty lousy at management in the first place, she says that she knows that it's a bit cringy if she says it, but she still tells him to please return back home safely, and Ma Dong-wook then walks off. After that we get to Lim Tae-gyu, who is talking in the phone. He asks the person what they were thinking by putting their Minsung there, and says that it's possible that the ants could attack that spot, and tells them to move him to the rear as much as possible, asking the person if they know just how much Minsung is worth, and tells the person to hide him as much as they can. The text then says that meanwhile, hunters from each guild were requested by the Hunter Association to prepare themselves towards the south of Korea. That was because even if the raid was successful, they did not want any surviving ants to infiltrate and attack the mainland. Each defense force consisted of a B-rank hunter, who will lead 3 C-rank hunters and 10 plus D-rank hunters. There were even retired hunters, and even those who received awakenings but decided not to become a hunter, and in total, there were 5,000 of them. They were only a tenth of all the people who had an awakened ability in the entire country. We then get to the helicopter, where we see someone introduce himself. He says that he's the cameraman from the official Hunters Reporting Center, and just like the name implies, he's someone who specializes in filming hunters, saying that this will be broadcasted live on TV, and that they won't have to worry too much about mistakes, since the broadcast will have a 10-minute delay. The editing team can cut those parts out for them. Baek Yoon-ho says that he can't believe that a cameraman is deployed to a dangerous place like this, and asks what Go-gun-hee is thinking. Ma Dong-wook says that it's their duty to protect people as hunters, but tells the cameraman that he has to understand that his life is in their hands. He says that they don't need to worry about that, as it may not look like it, but he's actually an A-rank hunter, explaining that being a hunter is his side job, saying that this isn't his first time that he will be filming in a dangerous place, and that he's also had his fair share of dungeons that threatened his life as well, although no situation can probably compare to the place they are going now. Ma Dong-wook tells him not to worry, and that the reason why the chairman of the Hunters Association even allowed him to come to this place was because he is certain his plan will succeed, and he thanks them for the reassurance. Ma Dong-wook says that this will most likely be the first time normal people can watch an S-rank raid, as well as their last time. On top of that, after the third failure, people have been wanting vengeance on the Jeju Island, telling them all to make sure to accomplish that this time. Baek Yoon-ho thinks to himself that more specifically, if they were to fail this time, it might signal the end of Korea, and that people are in dire need of a hero right now. He then looks over to Min Byeong-gu and says that he's surprised that he came. He says that it's because he knows that Baek Yoon-ho will most likely be the first one to die if he wasn't there to heal him, and says that he's the type to run in head first, which just makes him funnily upset. Cha Hae-in then asks Baek Yoon-ho if he's gotten any contact from Jinwoo. He says that he hasn't, but asks why she is wondering. Cha Hae-in quickly says that it's nothing before Ma Dong-wook looks outside and says that it's finally going to start as we see the helicopter growing closer to the island, and we then see Min Byeong-gu, whose hands are trembling. After that, we get to Goto, who calls the upper district of the Jeju Island for a ghost town. He looks at the carcasses and wonders if they started to eat each other, and that there must have been a predator amongst them. He then says that this is Team Alpha, and for the others to respond in order. Team Bravo then responds, followed by Team Charlie and Delta. Goto then looks super serious as he tells everyone to release it now, and then everyone at once releases their magical energy, and the Korean team watching this in the helicopter are in pure shock, thinking that the Japanese must have started their attack, We then see the ants flying outside of the cave to attack. Some of the ants even starts going towards the helicopter. However, Choi Jong-in coldly steps out and tells everyone that he will take care of it. He then activates his flame spears and sends them towards the ants. Byeong-gu says that it's impressive. However, Choi Jong-in disagrees, as he says that the amount of flames he used will do nothing towards them. He then says that the helicopter may shake quite a bit, telling them all to hold on tight before he creates a massive fireball and fires it towards the ants. He looks super cold as he says that the ants have evolved quite a bit and that they are much different from the last time, and that they seem to have a similar resistance to the ones in A-rank dungeons, where he has to make sure to focus quite a bit on his flames. After that, he uses his flames to start to fly down, saying that he will first scope out how strong these guys are. Ma Dong-wook wonders if Choi Jong-in will be okay, but Cha Hae-in says that she's sure that he will, and that after all, his magic thrives the most when he has to face more than one enemy. We then see Choi Jong-in landing and completely obliterating the ants. He says that this is his first time in a while since he last played with ants, saying that back when he was a kid, he used a lighter to burn them, and every time he burned one, they would make these loud popping noises. He moves his glasses up while saying that now he only hears loud explosions. He then looks up towards the others and tells them that it's safe for them to come down. Ma Dong-wook says that the plan they are following right now can become much like their previous attempts, and that they could end up getting trapped inside the ant cave and perish, saying that the Japanese hunters can only pull their aggro for about 1 hour, and that within that time frame they must kill the queen. But he then says that if it's them, then there won't be a problem, and then all of them jump out of the helicopter and towards the island. We then get to Sugimoto, who tells them to commence their attacks and activate the electric jamming waves. They say that with this, the ants shouldn't be able to receive signals from their queen. We then see Kumamoto looking scared when an ant dies right by him. Kanai tells him to snap out of it and that he's going to die otherwise. We then see Akari wondering if at this rate they aren't going to kill all of the ants before the Korean team kills the ant queen. Tatsumi says that it's possible and asks where Kenzo is, and Akari says that he's playing tag with the ants and that he's going around destroying the wings of the ones that can fly. We then see Kei, who says that they can see fireworks near the entrance of the ant tunnel. Ippei says that it's probably the work of Choi Jong-in. Kei then wonders what would happen if his ice clashed with his fire, but Ippei just says that it's first going to be cold, then warm, and asks what else would happen. After that, we see the Korean team entering the cave, and Choi Jong-in says that although the extent of his flame prison is used primarily for tying up enemies, ants below B rank shouldn't be able to get over this wall, and says that he will now search for the entrance. He sends a ton of small fireballs flying, and Baek Yoon-ho asks him what he is doing. He explains that the tunnels are like a winding maze, and that if they aren't careful, then they are only going to end up getting lost or coming right back to where they started. However, he assumes that the Ant Queen is located at a place where an explosion wouldn't be able to reach her. Baek Yoon-ho is behind him and thinks that it's expected of Choi Jong-in and that he's a reliable teammate, and after that, they decided to go in. We then see Jinwoo, who's just completed his 10-kilometer run. He looks back and says that this is usually a lively neighborhood, but it seems there's nobody around today, guessing that the raid has started. He thinks that there's no point in him watching the raid anyway, and that even without him, he's sure they're skilled enough to successfully complete it, as long as nothing out of the ordinary happens, of course. We then get back to the cave where Choi Jong-in says that aside from these few, all the ants they have encountered were expected. Lim Tae-gyu says that this is the first time he's seeing these bastards, wondering if they are the Queen's royal guards or something. But he's a bit curious as they were surprisingly weak, saying that their eyes are atrophied and that they were evolved to specifically guard the insides of the ant tunnel, saying that it shouldn't be hard to kill them. Byeong-gu asks Baek Yoon-ho if he really thinks that the queen is here, saying that there are cases in history where the king would abandon their people and flee. Baek Yoon-ho says that they are just ants and that they won't know how to do that. Besides, this is an island. They won't have anywhere else to flee. The cameraman thinks that it's pretty dark in here and wonders if everything will be captured properly. As they continue walking, Choi Jong-in suddenly notices something. He sees the breeding ground, which means that the queen's nest must be nearby, saying that the ants from earlier were guarding these eggs and saying that he will burn them, but Cha Hae-in tells him to wait. She says that out of all these hatched eggs, that one alone is the biggest. Byeong-gu is amazed by the size of it and says that maybe a royal guard spawned from it. Baek Yoon-ho puts his hand on his shoulder and says that they just need to focus on killing the queen and not to pay any attention to anything else. We then get back to Akari, who tells Kenzo that he's made a mess, but Kenzo just says that the ants were annoying, saying that they had some sort of strategy in mind because they were flying at him in different formations and that he probably killed around 30 of them, but he also ended up injuring his shoulder. Akari asks him if he wants her to heal him, saying that she has one condition. He tells her to stop messing around and just heal him. Akari assures him that it's not money that she wants this time, but he just tells her to stop fooling around and that the ants are coming. But when he looks back, he sees Akari's head being sliced off. Kenzo screams that it's close and for them to stay on the ground, but before he can even try to punch the monster, his head has already been cut off as well. Tatsumi screams and rushes forward with his sword, but just like the others, he gets dealt with easily. We then get back to the Korean hunters, and Ma Dong-wook is up against one of the queen's personal bodyguards, thinking that each one is at least S rank. However, this one in particular he calls a monster. He puts his shield against it, as he says that their movements are simple and predictable, unlike hunters who utilize various tactics. The ant then gets over the shield and tries to attack Ma Dong-wook, which is when he calls for the trusty Cha Hae-in to come in, which she does as she jumps above the ant and completely slashes through it before she goes in for her second victim right away and kills it too. She says that these ants are quite durable and that they are more than what she would have guessed. Ma Dong-wook says that the bodyguards are different from the normal ants, but it's fortunate there aren't as many of them. Byeong-gu then tells them that they don't need to concern themselves, as he will provide support from the rear. But not only that, as he also takes his weapon and smashes the ants' heads. He explains that they can live for a while even after getting their heads bashed in, and says that he would rather they finish them cleanly so they can't attack them anymore. Baek-yoon-ho thinks to himself that they haven't even reached the queen's chambers, but that they have already encountered the bodyguards, and on top of that, they are the third gens they have fought before. He then speaks out loud and says that he's only speculating, but he thinks that the first gen ants have been completely supplanted by the bodyguard ants, and that from here they might be in the thick of the second gen guard ants. Byeong-gu then takes up his book and says that if that's the case, then they better prepare themselves, and he uses some sort of power-up ability on everyone there, making them feel like they could take on a whole army, and we then see the army in question, which is looking right towards them. However, we then leave them and instead goes over to Ippei and Kei. Ippei says that they are being sent to check up on Team Charlie since they fell out of contact and wonders what the hell they are doing. Suddenly Kei tells Ippei to slow down. They get on the ground and sees that there are signs of combat, but that he don't think that they would have any trouble with the ants. But suddenly on the floor, he sees Tatsumi's glasses, and when looking a bit further, he sees their bodies. Suddenly Kei starts throwing up, wondering what the hell this unbelievable stench is, and saying that he's never smelled anything like this before. Suddenly he looks up and sees that it's coming from the forest, and in an instant he uses his ice magic towards the entire forest. But even then the mysterious figure just cuts through the ice and probably kills him. We then get back to the Korean hunters who say that they have wasted so much time. However, someone else says that he thinks they did well finishing this number of ants in less than 5 minutes. Baek-yoon-ho thinks that Byeong-gu literally gave them wings before he looks towards Cha Hae-in, and says that even in that short amount of time, he thinks that she killed twice the number he did. Someone else says that so far they have spent 15 minutes and that they will probably be faster on their way back, so by estimating with some room, he says that they probably have about 30 minutes left. Suddenly, Cha Hae-in says that she thinks that she can smell the queen alongside her bodyguards. Baek-yoon-ho says that he'll scout and confirm it, and it's exactly as Cha Hae-in said, as right in front of them is the queen with 8 bodyguards. Ma Dong-wook says that he'll take care of the queen and asks if Cha Hae-in can take care of the bodyguards, and she tells them to leave the bodyguards to her. We then see the goat Choi Jong-in start to light up his fire and says that he's always practiced moderation, but at least for today he feels that it would be a waste not to use his full power, and he uses some insane fire dragon magic. Suddenly an ant is attacking Choi Jong-in from his back, but just when it's about to attack, we can see that Lim Tae-gyu has already shot it down, telling Choi Jong-in that he's got his rear and not to worry. Seeing this makes Baek-yoon-ho think that there's no need for him to save his strength. He says that it doesn't matter how hideous he becomes, because if he can kill all these damn bugs, then it's worth it. He gets into his full beast form and completely slashes the ants, and Cha Hae-in is just a bit surprised seeing his transformation this up close. Anyway, Ma Dong-wook looks back and tells Cha Hae-in that he is counting on her, and right away she takes her sword and uses her concussive taunt, which makes it so that the ants start lining up towards Cha Hae-in, and because of that, Ma Dong-wook gets behind and says that until all the bodyguards are dead, he will keep the queen occupied. Suddenly, the cameraman hears in his ear his boss saying that they've got over 80% viewership right now and asks him to get a better look, but just as he's about to go forward, Byeong-gu pulls him back. He says that there is an S-ranked boss in here and tells him that no one is going to be responsible for his own life but himself, telling him that if he understands him, then he should stay behind him and that this is where it really starts. The cameraman says that it must be a complete lie that a healer is weak in combat because he's doing better at it than he ever could. We then get to an old sweet couple where the woman asks her husband if he is watching the Hunter show, but he says that he isn't interested. She tells him not to be like that, and that the TV said earlier that they can finally beat those things this time. However, he explains that they always say that, and that he isn't interested. She says that they are doing it to avenge their only son, and that she knows how much it tears out their hearts, but that they have to watch it. However, he doesn't respond. So she goes to watch herself, and the commentators on the TV says that their proud and courageous hunters of the Great Republic of Korea have taken the first step in the Queen Ant raid. And here we are in the inner sanctum of the Queen Ant. On screen, you see a giant ant, likes of which they have never seen before, saying that Ma Dong-wook is managing well, but looks like the other hunters must eliminate the bodyguards fast and help out. We then see spectators all over the world watching the hunters take down the bodyguards, and when they have taken out every single bodyguard, even the old man joins in and tells them that they need to get it done this time. And now, with only the Queen Ant left, Ma Dong-wook tells everyone to push. Lim Tae-gyu starts it off with firing off an insane amount of arrows, all hitting the Queen's head. Baek-yoon-ho is next up and attacks the Queen while telling them all not to falter, and that a queen without her bodyguards is just an empty husk. But just then, the Queen attacks, and she sends out some sort of poison out of her mouth, which critically hits both Ma Dong-wook and Baek-yoon-ho. But luckily, Min Byeong-gu was there and was able to heal them up in no time, telling the Queen that if she is going to target anyone, it needs to be him. Then the Queen then does just what he said and goes for him. However, just then, Ma Dong-wook blocks the Queen with his shield. Next up is Choi Jong-in, who tells everyone to back up as he fires an insane amount of fire towards the Queen. Baek-yoon-ho from the side says that the Queen is done for, saying that he could tell from his long years of experience that the Queen was nearly gone already and that the victory seemed within their grasp. But then, out of nowhere, the Queen let out an insane roar, and they all wonder what it was. Baek-yoon-ho wonders if it was a death cry, but says that it feels different and that it's like she is calling for something. Sugimoto then tells Goto that the ants are surprisingly heading back towards the nest, and that the interference wave is no longer having an effect. Goto is shocked to his core and wonders what it is that is going on. We then see Cha Hae-in, who's just given the final blow to the Queen, and looks back, wondering if it's really over. Lim Tae-gyu, with a shaky tone, asks if they just became the 7th team to clear an S-ranked gate. However, Baek-yoon-ho from the side says that he's detecting something in the air. Ma Dong-wook, holding his phone, tells them that the ants are returning to them and that they need to escape right now. Everyone is in shock by this news and wonders if the Japanese hunters couldn't even keep them back for a whole hour. Choi Jong-in looks back and says that the flame net he placed around the nest entrance has already been breached, and suddenly the hunters can feel an immense aura which makes them shake all the way down to their core. We then see a big ant beginning to make his way. Baek-yoon-ho says that it's impossible, but the big ant continues to make its way before he screams, unleashing an insane amount of aura and strength. Baek-yoon-ho's eyes widen as he's in shock by how this insane power is from a single beast. We then see Cha Hae-in down on the floor, starting to cough because of the smell. She thinks to herself about this terrifying pressure and says that she can't believe it, and thinks that this is no ordinary beast, saying that the beast that suddenly appeared before their eyes was an entity that could strike fear with just the sound of its footsteps, which we see here as Ma Dong-wook looks scared all the way down to his core. However, he knows that they don't have time to be standing around like this and that they need to hurry and kill that thing right away. However, as the monster walks right by Ma Dong-wook, he is unable to do anything as he just lets the monster walk past him. The beast goes towards his dead queen, and suddenly, he starts getting extremely pissed as he lets out a roar, which makes even the S-rank hunters fall down to their knees. The monster's eyes turn bright red, and he spots Cha Hae-in, who's somehow able to stand but not for long as the beast teleports behind her, and even before she is able to react, the beast has already sent a super powerful attack right into her stomach, which made her fly right into the wall and cough out blood. Ma Dong-wook screams her name, but just then, the beast goes right in front of him. Ma Dong-wook is able to take his shield before the beast, but that doesn't really matter as he completely pierces through it. Ma Dong-wook then tries to hit him with his weapon in his right hand. However, the beast just catches his hand and then pulls out both of his arms. Baek-yoon-ho gets furious and screams, but before he can even move, the beast has slashed his entire chest. Choi Jong-in tries to get out his fire magic, but once again the beast is too fast and makes sure that Choi Jong-in doesn't get to fire it off. Lim Tae-gyu pulls out his bow in an instant and thinks that if he's at this distance, then he won't be able to miss his shot. However, just as the shot is about to make contact with the beast, he amazingly just stops it with his bare hand. And if that wasn't bad enough, then he also has the strength to just crush it, and to finish it, he slams Lim Tae-gyu away with little to no effort. However, as he turns around, he suddenly gets pushed back, and it's none other than Ma Dong-wook. He smiles and says that even if the beast rips his arms off, as long as they have Hunter Min Byeong-gu, it won't be an issue, which we can see as Ma Dong-wook's arms have been healed. After that, we go over to Min Byeong-gu, who thinks that it's because of his protective skill called camouflage, which allows him to lay low and hide his presence completely, although in order for the skill to be effective, he's not able to move. But for a healer, it's a pretty fine trade-off, and even if the beast wants to eliminate him, then he has no idea about his whereabouts, saying that as long as his team has his heals, they won't be easily defeated. We then see the beast taking Ma Dong-wook's foot and completely slamming him into the ground. We also see a small panel of Min Byeong-gu before we see the beast looking right toward his direction. Min Byeong-gu is in pure shock as he says that his camouflage skill is still active, so it shouldn't know where he is. The beast's eyes get even more serious, and Baek Yoon-ho screams Min Byeong-gu's name. However, it's far too late as the beast has already pierced his hand right through Min Byeong-gu's chest, and we then just see Baek Yoon-ho in pure agony as he screams his name out of frustration. Min Byeong-gu looks crushed, while the beast looks scary behind him as Min Byeong-gu tells everyone to please run, but before they know it, the beast has already bitten off Min Byeong-gu's head, which leaves them all in shock. However, Baek Yoon-ho gets extremely angry, and he starts to jump towards the beast to attack, but the beast simply grabs him by his throat, which makes his beast mode go away. As the beast is holding Baek Yoon-ho, he says the same thing that Min Byeong-gu told him and kind of mocks him, which makes Baek Yoon-ho even angrier, but there's nothing he can do. However, we learned that by the beast consuming its prey, the monster stole their power and knowledge. He then tells them that they are weak, and that even if they were the ones that killed the gods, it still doesn't make sense, and asks them who their king is. Baek Yoon-ho looks visibly confused by this question and is unable to answer it. However, luckily for them, the beast was able to feel something outside, and he went right towards it, saying that he could feel the strong one. Baek Yoon-ho got down to the floor again, but looked extremely wounded. But he just thought if the beast was heading to Goto, but he quickly throws those thoughts to the side as he says that they need to leave this place before the beast comes back. But suddenly, he can feel something, and he is able to feel the insane amount of ants coming their way. However, we doesn't get to see what happens to them, as we instead goes over to Goto, Mari and Minoru. Mari says that they have lost contact with the Charlie team, and now they also lost contact with the Delta team as well. Goto looks serious, and asks if it were a problem with the signals, saying that otherwise they wouldn't cut off communications like this, and then tells Bravo team to respond, which Kanai does, and says that the Bravo team is alive. Goto asks Team Bravo if they are also unable to get in contact with the Charlie and Delta team, and they say that they are, and that they can only seem to reach Team Alpha, asking Goto if they should go and scout for them. But Goto tells them not to, and that they already are on it, telling them to instead finish up on their side, and then get ready to meet up with them. After that, Goto gets another call, but this time it's from President Matsumoto. We then leave the conversation and instead get to a boat at the coast of China, where they say that it seems that South Korea is causing quite a commotion right now. One of them says that at least the ants shouldn't be able to fly to China. The other guy says that since the Japanese are helping them out, he's assuming that they are doing this to make Goto their national level hunter. The other one agrees, and says that since all national level hunters have cleared S-rank gates, and that Goto is the only one who has yet to clear an S-rank gate, however, the other guy wonders if this is really all there is to it, saying that it seems like the Japanese are using this opportunity to look good in the media. However, he then grabs his hat and says that Goto's skills alone won't be enough, saying that the difference between him and Liu Zhigang is easy to see. The other guy says that he's become quite the fan of him, and he says that it seems like it. Then he gets serious and says that in any case, this raid will definitely be a huge gamble for one of the parties. After that, we get to Goto, who looks like he's just seen a ghost. The president asks him what's wrong, and Goto says that it seems that they have suffered some casualties. Goto then goes back to his regular self, as he tells the president that these guys were just weak, and that there's no need for the president to worry. The president says that Goto is quite a cold guy, before he asks Goto if the Korean team is fighting the Queen. Goto says that they are, but admits that a little while ago, there seemed to have been an issue with the jamming signals, and all the ants rushed back towards the Queen, saying that he is a little worried about what this will cause, but saying that it shouldn't make much of a difference. The president then asks Goto what the chances are of the Korean team surviving this, where Goto coldly and confidently says that they have a 0% chance of survival. The president says that it's good, and that they can state that the Japanese tried their best to help out, but due to the loss of the Korean team, they were forced to pull out, saying that unfortunately, Goto's aim at becoming a national level hunter turns sour, saying that it's what they will put in the news as their true goal was to annihilate all of the South Korea's S-rank hunter, and he tells Goto to have everyone pull out. Goto ends the call and tells Mari and Minoru that they are pulling out, but just then, Goto is able to feel something coming towards them at a rapid speed. Luckily, he's able to block it in the last second, but that can't be said for Mari, who gets her head blown off. Goto looks serious and thinks that this one isn't like the others. He tells Minro to leave this to him and join up with the Bravo team. Minoru tries to argue, but Goto says that if this ant is strong, then he will only be in his way. His aura starts to go wild as he tells the ant that he's quite the fearsome one. The ant, or the beast who I have called him, also has an insane aura as he asks Goto if he is the king. Goto is a bit amazed that the ant can talk before he looks insane and says that he is the king. The ant only gets excited by this, and his aura starts to get even wilder, which catches Goto off guard as he can't believe this insane pressure. However, he's able to compare the feeling to when he fought Jinwoo, but before he can even finish talking, we see that his sword has already broken into pieces, and if that wasn't bad enough, we can also see his whole head on the ground. After that, we get back to the Korean hunters, where we see Choi Jong-in firing flames towards the ants. Baek Yoon-ho asks him if he can't increase the strength of his fire, but Choi Jong-in says that if he were to do that, then he would end up burning up all the oxygen they have left in this place. Baek Yoon-ho thinks that everyone is critically injured, and although Byeong-gu was able to minimize it to a certain extent, the damages they have suffered were pretty substantial, saying that at this point they can only rely on Choi Jong-in's flames. However, even though Choi Jong-in is trying his best, we can see some ants escaping the fire and going right for them. Baek Yoon-ho wonders if this is the end. However, just then we see one of Jinwoo's shadow soldiers appearing right in front of them and stopping the ants. Baek Yoon-ho looks at them in shock as he wonders who they are. But after that, we switch scenes to Jinwoo, who can feel his shadow soldiers, and then while looking colder than ever with his blue eyes, he says, "Return." After that, we see the cameraman who sees two big ants growing closer to him. He says that he can't believe that the last conversation he had with his father was whether or not he ate dinner, thinking that he should have talked to him more. He then just says "father" as he hears the ant getting extremely close and closing his eyes. But suddenly, he hears something, and as he looks up, he can see a big shadow sword right above his head, which has pierced through the ants, which of course was the doing of none other than the goat Igris. We then get to KMS, which I would guess is their radio station. Anyway, one of them says that he can't believe that all of their S-rank hunters are getting killed because of one ant. Another screams at him saying that due to the flood of calls from viewers, their communications network is about to die. The boss tells him so what, and says that they can't keep on broadcasting their hunters getting ripped apart on TV anyway. He thinks that it's done for, but that's when someone else tells him that some anonymous figure appeared at the scene just now. He asks what the other guy is on about, and goes for to take a look for himself. After witnessing it with his own eyes, he tells everyone to hurry up and get the broadcast running again, looking determined as he says that nothing will stop them from now on, and thinking that their fates are entirely in this new mysterious person's hand. And who is it that he is talking about? Well, it's of course Jinwoo, who's coldly and effortlessly walking alongside his shadow soldiers, and we then see that Jinwoo used his skill shadow exchange to be able to switch places with one of his shadows and arrive here. Jinwoo has his whole army behind him before he looks determined and says Iron's name. Iron gets excited and activates his skill, Taunt. Jinwoo kinda pats him with his fist and tells him good job before he takes out his daggers and is about to go ham on the ants. He makes one big jump and slashes all of the ants in his way. Ma Dong-wook wonders what just happened and asks them who is fighting. Baek Yoon-ho tells him that there's no need for them to worry anymore, and saying that everything will be fine. As we see Jinwoo continuing to slice up the ants, one of the ants tries to bite Jinwoo, however Igris takes his hand and crushes him instead, before cutting off the heads of the others around them. However, Igris isn't the only one which is going wild as we see both Tank and Iron rushing in and completely stomping on the ants. We then see Jinwoo, who asks if they should hurry things up a bit, and then says, "Arise." The reporter on the ground is in complete shock and wonders what it is that is happening as he wonders if Jinwoo just revived those ants. Suddenly, he can hear someone in his earpiece. It's the boss who tells him to hurry up and telecast the situation right now, and that the whole country is watching right now. However, the reporter with a shaky voice says that he isn't even sure what is going on right now, as he says that the ants are killing each other. Anyway, Jinwoo then goes to the other hunters and tells everyone to gather. He takes up one of his holy waters and tells them that he will explain everything later as he pours the drink into Lim Tae-gyu's mouth. We can see on the ground that he used 3 of his bottles, and he used them on Lim Tae-gyu, which was previously mentioned, but also Baek-yoon-ho as well as Choi Jong-in. He then goes over to Cha Hae-in, and Ma Dong-wook asks Jinwoo why she isn't regaining consciousness. Jinwoo tells him that she is in a critical state right now, and that he can't treat her with his current skills. Jinwoo looks at her and thinks that her senses are getting weaker. Jinwoo looks up and says that the ants here have been cleared, and says that they should hurry up and leave before any more ants come their way, and Ma Dong-wook agrees. But suddenly Jinwoo is able to sense something behind him, and we then see the Ant King coming closer with an insane aura around him, as he says that the king does not exist outside. He looks wild as he asks them if there's a king. Baek-yoon-ho looks shocked to his core, thinking that this means that the Ant King killed Goto. Ma Dong-wook also looks frustrated by this, but Jinwoo just coldly gets up and tells Ma Dong-wook that he is leaving Cha Hae-in in his care. Ma Dong-wook screams Jinwoo's name, but he just continues to walk, thinking that he should have known, ever since the signals from his shadow were disconnected from Goto, that he was probably killed. Both of their auras is now going wild around them as the Ant King asks Jinwoo if he is the king of the humans, and Jinwoo is just surprised that an ant is talking to him, and they then go to each other and creating this insane standoff with each other. The Ant King then tries to show dominance as he roars right towards Jinwoo's face. Jinwoo just looks drippy as always, as he says that the Ant King now seems more like a bug. However, before we get to see the insane showdown that's about to go down, we get to 5 minutes earlier, where we see a couple of hunters looking at their screams in shock when the broadcast got shut down. The reporters then tells the whole country that through the transmission, they learned that Byeong-gu had died and that the safety of the remaining hunters in the ant tunnel could not be confirmed. However, they then reveal that a mysterious hunter has just appeared at the scene, referring to Jinwoo of course, but this shocks all of the spectators. After that, we see President Matsumoto and also Reiji Sugimoto listening in to Goto's last words. The president is furious about this and asks Reiji where the monster currently is. Reiji tells him that it just appeared at the queen's lair. This makes the president even more confused as he asks him if the Korean team is still alive. Reiji looks at his monitor and says that it seems that way, also saying that a new entity with insane magic strength that rivals the ants has just appeared. After that, the president gets up from his seat and tells his assistants to right away turn on the broadcast to see what is going on. After that, we get to Jin-ah, who asks her mother what she is doing. Her mother tells her that the TV is strangely not working for some reason. Jin-ah then asks where Jinwoo went. Her mother tells her that he stepped outside and said that he needed to do something, but once again asks Jin-ah about the TV. Jin-ah rushes away, however, and tells her mother to hold on. Jin-ah goes to her room and picks up her phone just to look super surprised as she sees Jinwoo in the broadcast. After that, we go over to Go Gun-hee, who legit breaks his chair out of excitement by seeing the goat Jinwoo. After that, however, we finally get into the fight, where we see the Ant King locking in and throwing an insane punch towards Jinwoo, who takes it head on to the face. The pure strength of the punch makes some sort of air explosion around them, and all of the stones around them start to fly like crazy. Choi Jong-in says that the strength of their magic is insane, and Baek-yoon-ho says that they looked down on the ant too much and that it managed to get off a direct hit on Jinwoo. Suddenly, the steam goes away, and the ant is about to say that Jinwoo wasn't the king either, but that's when the Ant King's and everyone else's eyes widen as they see Jinwoo standing in the same place he was when he took the punch head on, and he just spits out some blood from his mouth. But Jinwoo doesn't stop there as he activates Dominator's touch, and with the pure force from it, he's able to get the Ant King to kneel right in front of him, and if that wasn't humbling enough, then Jinwoo takes his right hand and with a single punch, he makes the Ant King fly at an insane speed, which even leaves an explosion alongside him. Both Lim Tae-gyu and the reporter look like they have just seen a ghost or something. Ma Dong-wook then asks Choi Jong-in and Baek-yoon-ho if they are sure that Jinwoo is a mage-type hunter. Baek-yoon-ho says that he even had a hard time believing that as well. Anyway, the Ant King is far from done, as we see his eyes getting more red as he flies towards Jinwoo while roaring. Jinwoo thinks that it's pretty sturdy and wonders if it's because of its exoskeleton, before he looks insane and says that it's getting in his way. The Ant King goes in for a totally slam down, but Jinwoo blocks him effortlessly with one hand. The force between of them continues to create shockwaves around them. With Jinwoo's other hand, he takes it and punches right into the Ant King's stomach. The Ant King then gives back right away by sending a punch towards Jinwoo's face, and after that, they both trade a full one blow to the head by each other. The reporter who's looking at this thinks that the pressure in here is overwhelming, and that even an A rank like him can barely withstand it, saying that the strength of their magic alone is making him lose consciousness. Suddenly, the Ant King's shell starts to break, and he wonders how this is possible as he isn't meant to be losing in a battle of strength. He starts to tremble as he wonders just what the true identity of this human is. Anyway, after that, they once again clash with each other, and their fists meets this time. The power is so immense, so both of them flies a bit back. However, the Ant King noticed that once again, his skin was beginning to crack, which the ant just labels as impossible. However, just then, Jinwoo appears right under him and gives him an insane uppercut to the Ant King. But the Ant King uses it to his advantage, as with his head up in the sky, he takes out some sort of poison needle thing from his mouth and sends it right towards Jinwoo. Now Jinwoo is the GOAT, but he wasn't able to dodge the incoming needle attack and was hit by it. After he took the hit, he jumped back immediately, and he wondered if it was in fact poison he was struck with. The text then says that an ability that was coincidentally absorbed by devouring cone snails, the paralytic venom, saying that it's one of the most toxic poisons created by a living organism, not to mention that it has become even deadlier after it was mixed and condensed with magical energy in his body. Jinwoo is still on the ground, and the Ant King walks over to him. He stands above him and tells Jinwoo that he seems to be having a bit of trouble, just mocking him basically. And then right after that, the Ant King tells Jinwoo to die as he goes in for the final attack. But then suddenly, we just switch positions to Kanai and Minoru. Minoru looks down, but Kanai tells him that they just received a call from Reiji, and she asks Minoru what really happened. Minoru is trembling as he tells her that they can't win, saying that there's a monster and that he is not a monster that humans can hope to stand against. Kanai drags him by his clothes and asks him if he's completely lost it, but he just says that no one can stop it. After that, Kanai has had enough and just throws him down to the ground and calls him pathetic, and then looks up towards a helicopter and says that it's going to get problematic from now on. We then finally get back to the insane fight where we see Jinwoo, who's gotten a hold of the Ant King's arm. The Ant King is in pure shock, but before he knows it, he's gotten a clear punch towards the face by Jinwoo, and this isn't some ordinary punch as it makes the Ant King fly right into a wall in the cave. After that, we see that the system has popped up, which says that the cure to the poison has been completed. Jinwoo thinks that the Ant King was being strangely happy due to the poison, continuing and saying that maybe it's due to his sense stats getting higher, which is why he can sense its emotions. He looks at it and concludes that it's definitely getting nervous however that goes for them, as well as Cha Hae-in is only getting worse. Because of that, Jinwoo knows that he has to finish it as quickly as possible, so he jumps high up into the air before he tries to hit the Ant King with an insane kick to its head. But just as Jinwoo meets the ground, the Ant King has disappeared. Both Baek-Yoonho and Choi Jong-in can't believe their eyes, but Jinwoo coldly just looks up to the sky where he spots the Ant King flying. The Ant King thinks to himself that not even the poison worked on him, and that a battle of strength would just be a waste of time, saying that if his enemy specializes in strength, there's no need for him to face him head on, as he knows that his true power is in fact speed. Thinking that if he compress his body, that he expanded earlier to focus solely on speed, he can do it. He looks intense as he tells Jinwoo that his fun time is now over. They then stare at each other for a quick second before the Ant King rushes towards Jinwoo, but he can't believe his eyes, because just as he was about to hit Jinwoo, he evaded him. Jinwoo then appears on the side of the Ant King and is about to attack, which the Ant King just in time blocks. Because of that, Jinwoo jumps back. He lands on the wall before he jumps back towards the ant, and they go back and forth like that for a while. The Ant King thinks that not only is Jinwoo catching up to his speed, but he's even getting faster. Jinwoo, on the other hand, thinks that the ant might be on the same level as the Demon King, or maybe even higher. However, he says that compared to back then, he's since obtained a stronger weapon and also grown stronger by defeating him. Not to mention the most obvious fact, which is that his exoskeleton has gotten considerably damaged, which makes Jinwoo certain that he can do this, and he then goes absolutely ham on the Ant King. The Ant King screams out of frustration, but Jinwoo just activates his Vital Strike skill and goes in for even more hits. However, in the middle of it, his Vital Strike skill gets an upgrade and goes to its final form called Mutilate. Because of this, Jinwoo stops his attack, and the Ant King thinks that this is his chance to escape, so he tries to fly away. But Jinwoo isn't that stupid as he asks the Ant King where he is going before he activates his new skill, Mutilate, and gives him multiple blows to the chest. Jinwoo quickly notices the effect of this skill, and because of that, he decides to humble the Ant King even more. as it's like he is flying around him while giving him more fatal blows and finally cuts off one of his arms. The Ant King tries to catch Jinwoo lacking and attacks him, but he easily avoids it and jumps away. The Ant King looks furious, as he wonders if there's really not a single aspect that he has an advantage in compared to Jinwoo, but then he figures it out as he makes a roar that echoes through the whole cave. The Ant King's roar summons a ton of ants who are all rushing over towards Jinwoo. The Ant King then looks cocky as he asks the human how this is, but Jinwoo coldly just smiles before he tells his shadow soldiers to go forth, and we then see his whole shadow army going towards the ants to try and clash them in an all-out brawl. We first see Igris going absolutely mental on the ants before we leave him, and instead see the high orcs having a bit of fun as well. But after that, the big guy appears as Jinwoo tells Tusk to come forth. He looks at Tusk and tells him to just aim at the ants, saying that he won't summon Tusk again if the humans get hurt, and only by hearing those words does it make him determined not to mess up. Tusk then used his skill Hymn of Giants before unleashing another attack, but this time it's Hymn of Fire Dragon, which doesn't only hit the ants, but the power is so immense that it pierces through the entire cave. Lim Taegyu watches in awe, wondering if that's really a summoned beast. However, Ma Dongwook says that it doesn't look like a summoned beast, but that instead it looks like the demon king that descended to the human world. Anyway, leaving those two, we get to the Ant King, who's legit in pure awe by all of this, and he wonders how this is happening, saying that he was born to be stronger than anyone. He swallowed up everything and stood on the top. The one who would constantly grow was himself, or the king, as he calls himself. But just then, we can see a figure coming closer through the fire. It's of course Jinwoo, who looks insane alongside Tusk behind him, and the Ant King's only thought in that moment was that he has to run away, thinking that in order to survive this is the only way. He then starts to use Min Byeong-gu's healing skills to heal his wings, and Jinwoo is quite surprised by this, as he says that this is his first time seeing something that can absorb the ability of the subject it ingests. However, in the middle of Jinwoo's thought, the Ant King tries to make his escape, but Jinwoo simply uses his skill Dominator's touch to pin him against the ground in no time. Jinwoo goes over the Ant King, which makes him try to crawl as fast as he can away, but Jinwoo, determined not to lose to him, jumps up and uses his skill Mutilate to slash the Ant King into multiple pieces, and after that the system pops up, telling Jinwoo that he has defeated the enemy and that he's gotten several level ups. However, then suddenly Baek-yoon-ho screams Jinwoo's name. Jinwoo goes to Cha Hae-in, who looks to be in a super bad state right now. He wonders if he took up too much time and that he needs to hurry to find a hunter. He knows that the Shadow Exchange skill isn't almighty and that there's still more cooldown time left, and he has never tested if he can use it with another person, thinking that even if he rides with Kaisel for an alternative plan, then Hunter Cha Hae-in will die first, wondering if there's any healers alive in the Draw Swords Guild and that there must be a way. But then he comes up with the perfect solution. He asks the cameraman to turn it off. He is surprised, but Jinwoo says that if he doesn't hurry up, then he will break it, which he then agrees with. He then screams at his shadows to look for Hunter Min Byeong-gu's dead body, which leaves Baek-yoon-ho a bit puzzled. One of the high orcs then comes with his body. Jinwoo looks at his body and wonders if it will work, as he even got his head eaten. Baek-yoon-ho from the side asks Jinwoo what he's going to do. However, he doesn't answer him and instead focus on Min Byeong-gu, and he notices that the system tells him that his shadow extraction spell can be used on him, which is a relief for Jinwoo, who thinks that this is the only way. He then coldly says, "Arise," but the system pops up saying that Jinwoo failed to extract the shadow. He then tries a second time, but still no use. He thinks that it must be his strong will of not wanting to be a shadow soldier, saying that making humans into shadow soldiers might not be the right thing to do. However, he looks at Cha Hae-in and says that the ones alive should live. And then for the third time, he says "Arise," as he says that Baek-yoon-ho grabs his shoulder and asks him what he is doing towards Min Byeong-gu. But as he sees Min Byeong-gu slowly starting to come back from the dead, he wonders if the nature of Jinwoo's skill is to control the dead. And then we see Min Byeong-gu, who's been turned into a shadow soldier. Choi Jong-in calls it impossible when he witnesses Jinwoo's power, and Ma Dong-wook says that Hunter Jinwoo is definitely not a normal summoner. We then see the shadow of Min Byeong-gu, who goes to Cha Hae-in and takes out his book to start healing her. Baek-yoon-ho still has his arm on Jinwoo's shoulder, and Jinwoo says that he can tell what kind of person Min Byeong-gu was, as he didn't give him any orders, but that he's healing Cha Hae-in on his own, and that he's a very kind and warm person. Baek-yoon-ho looks frustrated, as he says that it's no longer Min Byeong-gu, but Jinwoo just says that he is right. The cameraman on the side is also in awe of Jinwoo's ability, and thinks that he can see why he wanted him to turn off the camera, and that they shouldn't broadcast something like that for the whole world. Choi Jong-in thinks that the more intense the battle gets, the stronger his power becomes, and says that it's quite a fearsome power. We then get back to Baek Yoon-ho, who says that he's sure that Jinwoo will be participating in more battles to come, and that he's sure that he will be needing the help of Min Byeong-gu's healing abilities. But he says that Min Byeong-gu is someone who is tired of fighting, and asks Jinwoo if it would be possible to not send him back to fight. Jinwoo looks back and gently takes away Baek Yoon-ho's hand, telling him that this is the second time he's touched his shoulder. He then looks at him with a warm smile and says that the only difference from the first time is that this isn't a command, but an earnest request, right? Besides, Jinwoo was having the same thoughts that Baek Yoon-ho was having, and Jinwoo then walked towards Min Byeong-gu and cancelled the extraction. Before Min Byeong-gu leaves, he looks over to Baek Yoon-ho, and both smile at each other before he disappears. After that, the hunters walk out of the cave and onto the helicopter. As they are boarding the helicopter, Jinwoo tells Baek Yoon-ho that he will be staying behind and that he's still got some things to do. They look up towards the sky and see a ton of ants, and Jinwoo tells Baek Yoon-ho that he will clear the way for them and then continue to clean up the remaining ants. He then calls out his trusty Kaizal and tell Baek Yoon-ho that he will see them later as he flies away and crushes the ants. We then get to a boat where we see Minoru scratching his head, saying that it was definitely a monster, saying that there was no way Goto could have won against that, and calling this raid a failure, and even going as far as saying that there's probably no one who could defeat a monster like that. However, Sugimoto tells him that there's no need to worry, and that the raid is over, and that the monster has been taken care of. Minoru screams that it's impossible, but Sugimoto says that they have got it confirmed by the Korean headquarters. Sugimoto then thinks back to when Goto told him about Jinwoo, and thinks that this must have been his doing. Suddenly, someone else comes and tells them that there are still some ants remaining, and tells them to prepare for battle. Anyway, leaving them, we get back to the goat Jinwoo, who we see is killing the ants with his own shadow ants. After that, his mages start burning the ant eggs, and Jinwoo thinks that he is lucky that he's getting experience points, even though the eggs haven't hatched yet. He then says inventory, and thinks that he soon needs to clear out his inventory before spotting something unusual in his inventory, and wondering what it is. However, it doesn't take long before he finds out, as he takes it out and says that he had totally forgotten about this one. He then spins it around before unleashing it, which creates a storm of lightning that flies everywhere. Jinwoo is amazed by this, and thinks that it would be a waste to leave this thing in storage, and that he will take care of the remaining eggs with this item. After that, we get to a house that almost looks like a castle, and in there, we can see Jinwoo being on the TV screen. Someone whose name we don't know right now asks someone else about his thoughts on this. We then see David Brennan, who is the director of the Bureau of Hunters, and he says that watching that footage made time fly by quite fast, and that he can barely believe that it's already 4 a.m. He then looks at the guy, whom we now know is called Michael Connor, and says that he already knows his answer, which is why he came at this ungodly hour. Michael says that a hunter who can summon and control hundreds of soldiers is an anomaly, and that he finds it to be a waste to remain in a small country like South Korea. David says that his thoughts are the same, and asks Michael if he has any other information on him. He then gives him a file and says that this is something that happened a couple of months back, which is otherwise known as the Sung-il-won incident, explaining that in the northernmost United States, he was someone who was captured by an A-rank hunter from an A-rank gate. No one knew if he was an entity from the dungeon or a monster from the dungeon, but he claimed to be a South Korean hunter. The information that was collected during that time was stored in the database, and it turns out that he is Jinwoo's father. David looks at it and says that now is their perfect chance, as no other countries know who Jinwoo is, saying that this is different from the time with Hwang Dong-soo, and that South Korea has been an ally to the United States for quite some time. And if they were to take 2 of their S-rank hunters, he wonders if it wouldn't signal that they want to end their relationship with them, but he thinks that Jinwoo might be worth doing it for. He looks at Michael with intense eyes and asks him if he can make it happen, and Michael says that he will try his best. We then see Jinwoo, who is once again just coldly walking with his sword, and he's now reached level 100. He then goes over towards the Ant King and says that this one has quite a fearsome aura. He then puts out his hand and says arise, but suddenly something strange happens as he finds himself in some sort of dark space and says that he can't sense anything. He wonders if it's because of the shadow extraction skill he used on him, and wonders if it failed. But just as he's gotten out of the dark space, we can see something starting to create behind him. He looks back, and the system tells him that he has successfully extracted the shadow, and we then see the Ant King as one of Jinwoo's shadow soldiers, and we get to learn that he is already in the ranks of generals. He then walks towards Jinwoo and bows in front of him. Jinwoo thinks that this is a rank that he's never seen before and says that it must be the rank after Elite Knight, which would mean that this brat is much stronger than the other shadows, and that if he considers the states when it was alive, it does make sense after all. Jinwoo starts to walk away when suddenly the Ant King calls for him and he asks Jinwoo to please give him a name. Jinwoo thinks that it seems that the ultimate loyalty is the same for this one too, but he asks him how he's able to talk, but he just says that he was able to. Jinwoo thinks that since he was able to talk before he became a shadow, it might have transferred over. However, that can't be right, as Iron was a human, and he couldn't speak after he became a shadow, which goes for Hunter Min, Byeong-gu, and Tusk, and that the only difference right now is their rankings, which makes Jinwoo wonder if the others will also be able to speak if they level up. Jinwoo then tells the Ant King that he was the one who killed him, and asks him if he can still be obedient and follow Jinwoo. The Ant King says that he is not dead, but that he's reborn by Liege's power, saying that his happiness is overflowing, and that he will always follow Jinwoo and calls him his liege. He then once again begs Jinwoo for a name. Jinwoo first thinks off the name Gaemi, which is the Korean word for ant, but he says that it wouldn't be right, as he needs a name that will distinguish him from the other ants. Then suddenly, the famous author who wrote the novel, The Ants, suddenly popped up in Jinwoo's head, and he then says that the Ant King's new name will be Beru, and Beru thanks Jinwoo for his new name. Jinwoo then walks over to the queen and says that he will make her into a shadow now, and he says, "Arise," which turns her into a shadow soldier on the first time, and she just like Beru has the title general. But then suddenly Jinwoo can feel that his connection between the ants has become weaker and asks Beru what is happening. Beru says that the Ant Queen's normal ability is to control the ant colony. He explains that the magic of the Ant Queen is mainly for reproduction and that it's impossible to reproduce without a body. Jinwoo then asks Beru if that means that the queen ant doesn't fight, which Beru says is spot on. Jinwoo then coldly thinks that there doesn't need to be two heads in an organization and cancels her extraction. Jinwoo then goes to his shadow soldiers and tells them to stop and that they don't need to collect the magic crystals, saying that these magic crystals will be used for rebuilding Jeju Island and for compensating loss of damage, and that it's not something that they should keep their hands on, which makes the shadow soldiers drop the crystals in an instant. Jinwoo then thinks that this one from Beru's body will be more than enough. Moreover, Jinwoo knows that the problem is that the ants are left over and wonders if he can sweep them out with this much military force. Beru then from the side tells Jinwoo that he can feel it and that the enemies are going through difficulties because they have no leader and that they cannot organize the masses and are scattering. Jinwoo then asks Beru if he has a count on the total number of ants. Beru says that there were 8,700 ants before the raid today and that the number of survivors is a total of 4,000 ants. Jinwoo takes a deep breath and says that he thought that there were quite a lot that were exterminated and that he never thought that there would be this many left. He then looks over at Beru and asks him if he believes that he can exterminate all of them. Beru's aura starts going wild as he tells Jinwoo that if Jinwoo were to give him an order, then he would be able to. We then get to a ship where we see Park Jong-soo saying that the ants are flying over here. After that, the ship as well as the mages starts firing towards the ants and trying to exterminate them. Someone says that the ants are heading north and that they are clashing with the Knights Guild. We then get to the Fame Guild and we see the Vice Master saying that they will be joining in. However, the ants are starting to overwhelm some of the hunters, as we can see here, as Min-sung is completely losing it. Someone else walks past him and thinks that his title is A rank, but wonders if he's just an empty shell. We then get to the mainland, where we see Lee Joo-hee saying that the ants have already arrived on the shore and wonders if they will be able to take on all of the ants. However, just as they are about to attack, we can see that something has already cut through them, which leaves Lee Joo-hee in total amazement. Now who could it have been that did that if not the new goat Beru, who completely slashed through them all? The text then says that it took 2 days to clean up the ants. We also get to China, where the ants somehow managed to appear, and the boss of that ship says that they won't have time to sleep for 2 days before someone else says that the second colony is now coming towards them. We then see the mysterious Liu Zhigang, who is preparing to face the ants. He says that there sure are lots of them before he starts taking out his blades and sends some sort of insane attack towards them, which just makes them blow up. He then says that instead of these small fries, if the one that fought with Jinwoo was still alive, then it would have been more exciting, and calls it a shame. We then get to Thomas Andre, who is watching Jinwoo's performance against the Ant King. He says that there's only one connection between Mr. Huang and Jinwoo, which is that Mr. Huang's older brother might have been killed by Jinwoo. so Thomas will take revenge. He thinks that since this happened, it will be more difficult to meet with Jinwoo and says that he had hoped to get to meet him. His assistant then asks him what he will do if the two of them fight, and he just asks her if she doesn't know him, looking back at her with a scary expression as he says that Mr. Huang is in the Scavenger Guild's possession and that he will never forgive someone who touches his possessions, even if it's the American government. We then get to the third night of the Jeju raid, where the military and the representative guild of the Yeongnam district, the Knights Guild, arrived at Jeju to collect the magic stones just in case something might happen. We then see Park Jong-soo, who says that there was someone who barely had any luck. Young Yoon-tae behind him is confused and asks him what. Park Jong-soo then continues and says that the man always did his best to become the best and that his dream was to be a gold medalist, training hard just for himself, losing weight to lower his weight class and enduring the strict training, and the only thing left was to stand on stage for the Olympics. He was just about to achieve that dream as the doping test had no problems and he didn't have any nightmares the night before either. He was simply in the best condition ever, but because of a sudden arousal, he got caught by the magic meter and couldn't participate in the Olympics. We see that Park Jong-soo starts crying and Young Yoon-tae just asks if that is his life story. Anyway, his tears go away when they see the high-quality magic stones, and he says that if they take these with them, then they would be the best guild in the country, but someone behind them says that it's inappropriate. Anyway, as they continue walking, they spot one ant who's managed to hide away, but Park Jong-soo takes care of it in no time, and he tells the miners not to worry as they are here to protect them. However, suddenly, all of their faces drop as they see some mysterious figure starting to make his way out of the shadows. Park Jong-soo asks him to show him their identity right away and tells him that if he doesn't follow their rules, then they will shoot him. The mysterious man starts talking, but it's in some weird language, and Park Jong-soo starts to wonder if it's a monster. However, before they can do anything, someone snaps their fingers, which makes everyone suddenly fall asleep. We then see that another mysterious man has appeared, telling the first one not to make a scene and that he only made them sleep for a bit. The one who looks like he's made out of ice asks the other one if he wants to check something, but he says that he's certain that it's his power. The ice guy calls it strange and says that he doesn't understand why he's helping the humans. However, he then says that the hunt will proceed as planned and that nothing has changed. He starts opening some sort of portal before the other guy says that it seems like that one was here in Korea and asks if they should take care of it since they are here. However, the ice guy says that they will leave it in his hands and that he doesn't want to get involved just yet. As the ice guy leaves, the other guy calls him a coward before he, on his own, opens some sort of portal as well and leaves with it, leaving the Knights Guild sleeping in the cave. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the entire Jeju Island arc, and what a cliffhanger we are leaving off with. We see two mysterious men with strange powers being able to make the Knights Guild sleep in no time. However, if you want to find out more about who they are, then you will unfortunately have to wait until the next video where I go over the next arc. But don't worry, it won't take as long this time, as the video is basically already finished. Anyway, if you like solo leveling and want to keep up with the content, then be sure to subscribe. Anyway, have a great day, and bye.